Gentlemen, hello. How are you?
Hello. Good, man. Good.
All right. We've been kind of gone for a couple of weeks, but we are back, and we are back talking Absolute New Who, which I guess the way I said that sounds like Absolute DC with their new versions and takes on Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman, which if you haven't seen that is really freaking interesting. Just side note there before we get started.
I have not.
All right. Well, let's look at it this way. Wonder Woman is a sorceress, so I'll put it that way. And Batman's villains are his childhood best friends. So, spoilers. All right. So, gentlemen, let's get started. And as I like to say, as always, Miss Belinda Chandra. No, anyway, as I always like to say, here we go again. Wait, do y'all hear that? There's something above. There's something flying over. I want to wait till it flies over before we start.
Yeah, I don't hear it on my end.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, cool. Well, for that matter, then, here we go again. The Discussing Network presents Discussing Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Kyle Jones, and before we get started, I want to say to all of our friends who may be listening remotely from Miss Belinda Chandra 1, behold, I couldn't resist it, but what I can't resist, Mr. Clarence Brown, how are you?
I'm doing well, man, and as always, glad to be on with you guys to talk about Doctor Who, or anything else for that matter. Just good to be on with you guys.
Indeed. And as always, I can't wait to say, behold, Lee Shackelford, Mr. Lee Shackelford, how are you?
Very well. And can only echo the sentiments. Just I've been looking forward to talking with you guys, to have a new episode of Doctor Who for the three of us to talk about. Wow, here we are.
Indeed. And I am so psyched about this because I have listened, I have watched this episode, I've enjoyed this episode, and I have anticipated getting on both of your nerves, but particularly Clarence Brown's nerves tonight or morning or whenever you may be listening to us at some point in the future. But Lee, if we have someone listening, tuning in for the very first time saying, wow, what the heck have I landed into? What would you like to say to them?
I'd say run.
Right.
No, that's the doctor's line. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We know that you got other things you could do. And indeed, I've been recently appraised that there are at least 90 Doctor Who podcasts out there, and you could be listening to any of them, but you have chosen to spend this time with us, and by whatever ranking that is, we're supposed to be number 18.
Interesting.
Anyway, so thank you for checking in on the number 18 Doctor Who podcast.
Worldwide.
Anyway, and worldwide, and anyway. More about that later, perhaps. But so thank you for joining us. We'll try not to disappoint.
But I do know where we are number one at. Miss Belinda Chandra 1. Because everyone listens to Discussing Who on the Miss Belinda Chandra podcast player. Just saying. So Clarence, if someone were listening on the Miss Belinda Chandra podcast player, where else might they subscribe if they were back on planet Earth?
Well, if they haven't tuned out, they can subscribe anywhere. You can support the show by subscribing, leave a review, and telling a friend. If you have a review idea or anything else you want us to know, hit us up at Discussing Who on any and all social media. And also, you can send an email to discussingwho@gmail.com.
Good deal. And for anyone listening in the chat as we are streaming this episode live, welcome. We're glad that you're here. And really quick before we get started, we're at the beginning of a new series, whatever you want to call it. I call it the 2025 series of Doctor Who. Excited now that without going into the episode, and Clarence, I'll stay with you. Excited? Are you energized about new episodes? Thoughts?
Not to get into the episode, I love the companion. I don't know if that's getting too specific for you, but I do think the duo is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm excited. You're always excited when there's new Who to be watched, and yeah, I think I'm really digging it so far, and can't wait to talk about it more.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And Lee Shackelford, what about you? I'm curious to know.
I just feel like we're off to a great start. It's and you know, I have some bias because I love robots, so you know, robots. Anyway, but I just found this a very exciting and intriguing episode with some appropriately absurd ideas, you know, which seems in keeping with the nature of the show. And I don't know, I just loved it. I've only had time to look at it once, but I will look forward to looking at it again. So anyway,
Well, I'm going to give this episode, before we get into it, a compliment because I found myself doing something that I actually didn't even do in the 60th anniversary. Now, be it I watched the 60th anniversary specials over and over and over and over and over, and then over and over and over and over and over again. But what I had previously done, and I don't think I've done this since Moffat's era, was download and listen to the audio version as I drove, kind of like as a book on tape. And I found myself doing that this week, which was really, really, really cool. So, Lee, question, and Clarence, to you, anything else before we actually get into the nuts and bolts of this episode? Anything else that's been going on with you guys that you'd like to share before we get started?
Nothing specifically. I think as far as media go, I'm just excited for Andor coming up, and then hopefully Strange New Worlds this summer. So hopefully Doctor Who is kicking off a long line of good meaty television.
All right. Lee, what
yeah,
about you?
I had to dig up the email because I was afraid of getting my facts wrong, but it is the website FeedSpot, FEEDSPOT, that is ranking or at least listing Doctor Who podcasts, and in which they told us that we're in the top 90, which I said, I'm not sure if that's something to be proud of or not, but you know, being up there in the teens, that felt somewhat better. Anyway, they have a badge that they want us to wear on the website, by the way. I'll just mention that. So I need to connect you with that. Why they wrote to me, I don't know.
Because
But anyway,
you're the man.
You are the man.
it was very strange. But anyway, yeah. And yesterday, day before yesterday, was April 13th, which is the 80th anniversary of the event that the documentary series that I'm working on is about. So, yeah. So 80 years ago, this the U.S. Army came across this abandoned train in the heart of Nazi Germany that turned out to have 2,500 people in it. And as I have our narrator say in the documentary, the unstoppable 30th Infantry did the unthinkable. They stopped and did their best to help these people. So, you know, I've been looking forward to April 13th, to marking that for quite a while. And then the next day we got New Who. So, you know, I'm out here living the dream.
Well, good deal. Well, speaking of living the dream, I want to say a shout out to Harold Katz that is in the chat. And I also want to give a shout out to a gentleman who I said that I would mention in this episode. He goes by the name, or is named, not goes by the name, Neil McNally. He reached out to the not Discussing Who Facebook page, but the Doctor Who Podshock page, just to say hello, saying that he used to love Podshock and wanted to know what was going on with the host in general. So I responded back and just said, hey, if you're interested, you know, check out Discussing Who. And he said he would. And I also said, well, we'll mention you on our review of the Robot Revolution. So I'm staying very true to my word and giving a shout out to Neil. So welcome,
Yeah.
Neil, if you're listening.
And a reminder that we need Louis Trapani on the show again sometime
Indeed.
soon.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
So,
So Harold says real quick before we get started, I know it's off topic and probably missed it. What's up with the Harry Styles rumors? I think that was an April Fool's joke, that they were going to cancel Doctor Who and reboot it as Dr. Who. And there
Yeah,
were several
yeah,
names
yeah.
thrown around, and I think Harry Styles was one of the people who was mentioned. So I think that was nothing more than a Facebook
I
or a
believe so.
rumor.
That was
or a
April Fool's.
April
Yeah.
Fool's rumor.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys, what do you think of a Doctor Who series running alongside what we know of Doctor Who? You know, do the little rename of the Doctor, Dr. Who, and let, run a parallel universe with this one, as they've done before.
Right.
I have thoughts, but curious to what you guys, Lee, what do you think?
It would depend entirely on how it was done and, who was doing it. It's, the Australian K9 is still out there. It's
Yep.
only barely Doctor Who adjacent, and it exists and it works for what it is. It's just if you're over there looking for Doctor Who, then you're probably going to be disappointed. So
Now,
Anyway.
for me, if I were watching an episode of Doctor Who proper, and let's just go with it. The 15th Doctor once again bigenerates into two doctors, and one of those is an American actor, and one of those is a British actor, and the half 16.5 goes one direction, and 16.5 goes in the other direction. I don't know if I would have a problem with that because it's in canon and my head can explain it.
sure.
But if they just say, well, America's going to redo it, and this is the first Doctor in 2025, and it's D Who with the Cybeeves and the whatever,
Yeah.
and no, I don't think I would like that. What about you, Clarence? What do you think?
Well, I think it could be interesting. I'm not going to say it's going to be good, but I think it could be
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know.
Think Peter Cushing movies.
Yeah,
I mean,
very much
because
so. Yeah.
I think one of them is just awful, and the second one is really, I think, is really quite good. So, anyway, yeah,
Well, the only
Just-
thing that I will say about those movies is it has a very young Wilf in it before he was Wilf.
it does. Bernard Cribbins is basically the lead in Doctor Who, Dalek Invasion. Yeah, it's true.
Harold follows up and says the rumor made it onto one of the Sirius XM pop radio channels, and the hosts were all over it.
Yeah, and this is how such things get started.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, not a bit of truth to it.
Yep. But I know where they didn't talk about it. Miss Belinda
Here.
Chandra won. No, and here.
Right.
And here.
Until now.
Until now. So, for everyone listening, if you have not yet seen The Robot Revolution, behold, put us on pause, go out, watch the episode, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers. Alrighty, the spoiler warning has gone out, and we are back to review The Robot Revolution. This is the first episode of the 2025 series of Doctor Who, first airing / streaming on the 12th of April, 2025. It starred, hold on. Me, or is that who you're talking, Clarence?
No, go ahead. I was just talking. I meant to say Lee, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You know how my brain works. I get distracted easily. Sorry
My
about
bad.
that.
I'm sorry.
No.
I messed it up in the chat, people that are listening.
Hey, all I can say is sometimes, I do that introduction really, really well, and sometimes I need just a little polish. Polish. All right, so
It's going to be a long night.
back up. All right. The spoiler warning has gone out, and we are back to review the Robot Revolution. This is the first episode of the 2025 series of Doctor Who, first airing / streaming on the 12th of April, 2025. It starred Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor and introduces Verida Sethu as Belinda Chandra. So, summary view. Clarence Brown, I will start with you. Summary view. What say you?
Hashtag TARDIS O'Brown. I don't know. I love it. I'm sorry. I hate to start with that, but I know people are going to hate it. Oh, it's woke. No, I kind of like it. I like the who's in the TARDIS now. Now that that's out the way, let me get that out the way because I had to say it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think this was a fun episode overall. I really enjoyed it. I love the timey-wiminess of it. Like I just mentioned, I love our lead characters, and I thought the story was intriguing and in-depth. There are a few things that took me out of it. I'll bring those up later, but there were a few things that I thought they could have polished a little bit more to make this.
Polish.
No pun unintended. To make it a little bit more to my liking, but I did really enjoy it, and I thought it's a great start to the season, as opposed to Space Babies.
Yeah.
Lee Shackelford. Polish.
Yeah, when you put it like that, we're comparing to last year's season opener. Yeah, I'm with Clarence all the way, including I love a big white TARDIS with a chocolate center. So, it's it's delicious. And it's funny. Kyle and I are both trying to not look at negative comments on social media, and I have seen people complaining about this, that, and the other thing, but I have not seen anybody say anything about the whole lead cast being brown people. I have not seen a thing, which makes my heart glad. But that doesn't mean they're not out there. It just, yeah. Anyway, but it is kind of a landmark, and I appreciate that. It's and I just enjoyed the heck out of this story, not just because it has giant robots in it, but I just thought it was an interesting idea. It's worth mentioning that in about 1985, I gave my girlfriend at the time a star. So if she's still got that document out there,
Run.
There could be trouble coming from a planet orbiting the star Victoria Neal. But anyway, the star registry thing is kind of BS. You may know, but I mean it is a lovely romantic idea. But the International Star Registry, as they call themselves, is not the same thing as the astronomical body that actually names celestial bodies. So but still, this story has an internal logic about how this happened because of the document finding its way into the future and into the past. And so it became the creation myth for this world. So the fact that isn't really what that star is named from a terrestrial point of view, it really doesn't matter. And I like that. I like the timey-wimey stuff and the use of the phrase timey-wimey in this story. That you remember that her immediate response is, "Am I 6?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Timey-wimey.
Well, go ahead, Clarence.
Real quick, you mean to tell me that all these advertisements on the internet and on TV from back in the day of buying a name for a star, is not real? How dare they make money off doing nothing?
Yep, afraid so.
Man, I wish I thought of that idea.
Yeah.
See, right after you bought the Golden Gate Bridge.
Exactly. You could still tell people they're buying a crater on the moon or something.
Hey, names mean everything. Gulf of America.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. But we're finding new celestial bodies in our solar system all the time. So, let's, we should have an open market for naming micro asteroids and things like that.
And they can say, behold.
Behold.
Yeah.
As soon as it swims into view.
So
Anyway,
I just thought that this was what I wished Space Babies would have been. And I'm not faulting for doing something different and introducing to a new crowd. And I'm not digging, this isn't a dig at the Sarah Jane Adventures because I loved those. But it's almost like this is proper Doctor Who. And that was the script for the Sarah Jane Adventures, in comparison from the subject matter to the subject matter of this. This just felt like an
Okay,
RTD1.
could you let me know what you're referencing on Sarah Jane Adventures?
Just the stories feeling a little more, not that there wasn't a level of angst and of urgency, but just a little less of it. You know what I'm saying? That it just felt like the Sarah Jane Adventures would just made for a younger audience, maybe is what I'm trying to say. And this
Okay.
Space Babies felt a little more
Gotcha.
PG or G rated, whereas
G.
this was a little more maybe PG-13, if you want to put it in the context of American movie ratings or whatnot. But I had so much fun with it. It had things that made my brain come alive, which were the polish, the annoying little robot that's endearing, that was like, yes, 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 yes. The Miss Belinda Chandra that I just kept saying over and over and over. I just freaking loved it. So, yeah. So Clarence, you're about to say something.
I was just gonna say, well, that's part of things. I mean, everything you said are things that I love too. But I think on a whole, some of those elements, some of the, I feel like some of the elements weren't equal, and it kind of threw me out of it. And we'll get into it. But I feel like just a few elements, if they would have polished them just a bit more, I could give this a resounding 5 without even thinking about it.
So let's go to the very beginning. Something that was written and acted probably deliberately in the way it was so that you would kind of be out of it. What did you think of Alan at the beginning? And Lee, I'll start with you. That scene with Alan where he actually gives her the star, since you brought up the star certificate. What did you think of him at the beginning?
I maybe it's because I had literally done that thing before, but I felt a likeness and a kindness. I felt like this is me in that situation and being awkward and stumbling with this girl. I also want to say, hey, read the room, buddy. This is not what she wanted, and you're forcing her to say how much she loves it, and that's just tone deaf. Which somebody might go back in time and say that to me on any number of occasions. But this made me think of Dot and Bubble, in that when I saw Dot and Bubble the second time, there were things that were planted or seeded earlier in the episode that paid off in the end that I didn't catch the first time. And this time, just thinking about it, just going back and thinking about it, I remember that one of the first things that we heard him say is, I know girls aren't good at maths.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Yeah, which makes a lot more sense looking back on it. He's not just being dorky and awkward, as Harold says. That there's something wrong here. This guy's got problems. Then when we see his proposal, yikes. So run.
Yes, run. All right, Clarence, what do you think?
Yeah, it's very much as we've said, on the surface, it just looks like he's a dorky, awkward guy, and as Lee says, not reading the room. And Lee said he did something similar when he was younger. I could this is like a nerd thing. I could see myself doing this if I would have done. It's definitely a nerd thing, and some women or some people generally just gonna look at it like, what is this okay? So I did like, I thought it was interesting how that dynamic didn't really connect, but still she seemed like it seemed like it was just a love of the moment for her, or it seemed like they all kind of moved on quickly after that. I don't know whether intentionally or not. He said he moved, but I did like how that actually played out on screen. Now I didn't catch some of the micro things you were talking about, Lee, early on, of how he was kind of a hole, an awkward a hole. But I definitely, looking back, I can definitely see a few of those where he doesn't come off as such a nice guy um, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
What about you, Kyle?
So I want to give praise to the actor who did that part because to me, he played it as, and I'm going to go with what you guys have been saying and that Harold said, dorky and awkward, but there was that little bit of underlying creep that, this guy is just a creep and he is an a-hole, but he also, there was a creepiness about him, just something that kind of made your skin crawl just a little bit. And he did that so very well while being nice, quote unquote. So there was very layered acting that guy did to make different people feel different things. So
That's
kudos to him for very little airtime to do so well with what little time that he had. That being said, we then shift in the very opening to Belinda now being taken away by robots that are coming into her house and whisking her away. And she has a neighbor that the doctor does not see, that we see. Mrs. Flood, any thoughts? I know we didn't get much, but any new thoughts on Mrs. Flood?
Oh, I didn't see Mrs. Flood.
Whoa.
That's right. You ain't seen me.
No. No. And if anybody asks, I didn't see
I
her.
didn't see her. Nope.
Did you?
That is true. But if you had, let's speculate for a moment. If we had have seen Mrs. Flood as the next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, it is interesting that we're continuing that interesting thread about the mysterious lady who seems to be all on board with Time Lords and space travel and stuff. And yeah, I like her sort of very matter of fact. Bye bye, Belinda.
Bye, Belinda.
Yeah, happens every day, this kind of thing. So yeah, bye.
All right.
What about the breaking the fourth wall element of the character?
Yeah, I was looking right at the camera saying, "You ain't seen me." Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not wild about that, but
Do we think that has some significance on who she actually is? I mean, I don't know what it could be,
Right.
but that's seems
is
like
she
that's
going to
often-
turn out to be something meta that she
Yeah.
knows that she's on TV?
Yeah, that what
Yes.
it seems like to me.
Hmm.
Deadpoolish or whatever.
Right, exactly. I don't know.
Well, a couple of things that I've noticed while we're talking about Mrs. Flood. I have noticed, everyone has noticed, or a lot of people have noticed, that in different appearances that she's had on different clothes. One looked like a vest similar to what Rory wore in Series 5. She had on a sweater and shirt similar to Face the Raven Clara.
Yeah.
And she on the church, no, not the church on Ruby Road, but the finale of last season, the season finale, series finale, the thing that she showed up in at the end was similar to what Romana #1 wore in one of, I think it may have even been your favorite story. Maybe. No, she wasn't in. That was Sarah Jane. Anyway, Romana has been in a similar costume to that as well. So that, and the other thing that I've thought about is the doctor has only seen her once in her appearances. The rest of the time she's been either with Ruby or Ruby's family. she has not been with the doctor except in that very first The Church on Ruby Road. She, when he saw her when he was going back to the TARDIS, that was the only time he's seen her, and she was hiding from him if she were indeed next door. Because when he started coming, she kind of ran back inside because she didn't want him to see him. So, last thing, here's my theory, and I want to go ahead and say it now. I'm wondering if she may be from beyond the boundary. She's from where he's from.
That's kind of what I was thinking. It seemed like it would have to be something like that.
Now, another speculation that would maybe explain his crying over this past 2 seasons that we've seen, because, one of the complaints has been he cries in every episode. What if he is trapped in some type of story, and every so often he realizes it and knows it and can't break it, and that's where some of the tears are coming from.
Interesting.
That is interesting. All right, let's talk Belinda Chandra. Thoughts about her as a character, and we can go any route we want to go with this. Clarence, why don't you start? Belinda Chandra, what do you think?
I think she's interesting. She's stern. She kind of knows when to take charge. She very much makes decisions on her own accord, as we see where she decided to turn herself in. And she's a nurse. And we need to figure out why the doctor was told to go find her and who told her to go find her. So, especially when you tie it into the fact that this actor has played her long descendant in a previous episode. I love the character so far. The actor, Varada Sethu, if I'm saying it correctly, she's magnetic to me on screen, and it seems like her and Shooty have great chemistry. So I'm loving her portrayal of the character so far.
All right, Lee, what do you think?
I'm with Clarence and also with Jamie Johnson in the chat, who says, "I love the attitude Belinda has toward the dangerous doctor." Yeah, she recognizes the danger immediately, and that's part of being a good nurse.
Yeah.
And I just feel like one of the things that they show us is how very good she is at her job, and especially this point that Clarence made is that she makes decisions quickly. She asks one question about the physiology of this guy on this planet. She's never been to before. Is his shoulder pretty much like one of ours? Okay, and she relocates his shoulder. That's a very telling moment, and I like that that's in the script, and I like the way she played it. Yeah, the doctor's going to have to keep an eye on her, and that's exciting.
And it is exciting, and I think you spoke volumes in what you said, because as much as I like her, I don't know if I trust her yet. But I like her. She brings an energy that I think that we have not seen in quite some time.
Yeah.
And if I were to say, she's her own character, don't get me wrong. But for some reason, if you were to take Donna Noble and mix her in with Martha, I think you would come out with a Belinda.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll add that I think they did a good job of this quasi ER type scene of getting to see her. And I guess we saw that a little bit with Martha, but not really. Because it seems like she's more in the trenches when we start the episode. So it's almost like we're on a medical episode for just a little snippet there. And you're getting to see her dive in. So I like that we laid the groundwork there for the character.
So what did you guys think? And because they totally just skipped over this. He turned off all the lights in the hospital and just left.
Oh, doctor.
Yeah, I I hope that that's instantly fixed because yeah, my first thought was, and 20 people just died. Well done, Doctor.
Oh
Yeah,
no. The old look the other way trick.
exactly.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
Well, another thing that I liked about her was and it goes along with her being such a different character from many of the companions that we've had from the very beginning. Don't shush me, don't
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
But when you get the grand, entering in the to the TARDIS and she's not really impressed.
right.
Thoughts about not really being impressed.
It is
Lee?
interesting that this is somebody who is, yeah, she's been abducted by robots and now she's on an alien planet, and she's being told that she's the queen. Yeah, a lot of people would have short circuited by that point and they'd just be, drooling. And she takes it all in stride. And I don't know
Yes.
if that's to a point of being ridiculous or what. But it certainly helps us continue telling the story. You can't spend time with her just sitting in a corner babbling and saying, "What? I don't, what's happening?" Which is what most of us would do.
All right, Clarence, because I'm leading up to a question, but Clarence, what do you think about that?
Can you state the question again?
Yeah, the question is, she's not impressed with the TARDIS like most people are.
uh,
Thoughts on that?
I don't know if I really have a lot of thoughts on that itself. I just think that she's ready, as she says, she's ready to get back to her new shift on Monday or whenever. She's ready to get back to her life. And as Lee mentioned, should she have been kind of shocked about all the stuff going on around her and, seeing her ex-boyfriend turn into a egg or I mean a sperm on the floor. Maybe she should have, but she's like, no, get me back to my life. You don't impress me, time detective. I'm going back home and I have stuff to do. I have a life.
Yeah.
So here's where I was leading up to, and this is why I'm wondering if we should not trust her completely, because when she is having the conversation with the doctor, when the robots return the TARDIS to him, she asked him, "So is that your TARDIS?" I went back and listened because it was brought to
Hmm.
my attention that he didn't say TARDIS.
Yeah.
And then I went back and listened where he talked to her about arriving, and he says, "The robots took my spaceship."
Mhm.
He did not say TARDIS at any point in a conversation with her, but yet she said TARDIS. Thoughts?
That we saw.
Yeah,
We saw.
I did notice that too, and I dismissed it as he said TARDIS at some point off screen that yeah, it's just not in the story. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
just the script mishap, or it could be something deeper.
That's true.
And I wish that, and I almost don't want to mention this, but I want to mention it, but I can't remember who, it may have been Who Culture online on YouTube, but when he was having a conversation with her whenever they were underground, and he was explaining something to her, the music that Murray Gold is playing in the background is a rendition, modified ever so slightly to This Is Gallifrey. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, because I know, musical pieces have been used over for different things regardless of their name.
Yeah.
But I just found that interesting.
Can I offer another opinion on that?
Sure.
Maybe it's the fact that when they went through the trippy 2001: A Space Odyssey or whatever kind of vortex mushroom trip, maybe
Schwupp.
maybe she retained some information about him as well, because he said, "I've known
That's-
you," and all this stuff, like he's lived a whole life with her. So maybe she retained some bits and pieces of information about him.
That's true.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
That is very true. So, what did you guys think of the time fracture or whatnot that we saw at the beginning? And Clarence, I want to leave that with you because you said this kind of made your head hurt a little bit at the very beginning.
Well,
Thoughts?
it did, but the second time I watched it, it wasn't as bad. I don't think it was as bad. I think the only lingering question I had from that is like, who or why did they originally come back? Why did they originally try to find the certificate and then come back and get trapped? As a foundation principle 5,000 years in the past. That's the only part that kind of, because they didn't really take time to get into that, but I'm sure we're going to get that later in the season. So that was kind of the only loose thread I had on that. The other parts of the timey-wiminess of it I thought were pretty brilliant. They go to get her. She mentions Alan. The doctor lands 6 months in the past, and then as they bring Alan back, Alan lands 10 years in the past and starts the revolution. So I thought all of that, the way that was worked out was well laid out. So, yeah.
All right, Lee, what say you?
All the same. Yeah. I didn't. I've seen on social media people complaining that this was hard to follow, that they couldn't put all those pieces together. And I thought, really? I thought it was all that they really made sure that everybody's following, but I don't know.
Lee, you're just exceptional, sir.
Right. This is my amazing something. Yeah. No, I think I had to sort of pause while watching it and think, so so then Alan arrives and then the doctor arrives and then okay, yeah, all right, onward. you know.
And I took it more so as this was one of those situations where the event creates itself because her saying to them, go find Alan Budd, is what ultimately leads to her being abducted to begin with. So it's
Right.
her own words create the fact of what's happening to her.
Yeah.
So that I thought was cool.
So who wrote Beethoven's Fifth?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I have to bring up the Polish, but I know that was just supposed to be a one-off character, but I would love to see Polish again. That was just something like, I saw it and I was like, I want one of those things.
Roomba is suing right now.
Yeah. We do have one of those things, and it's kind of a nuisance.
As was Polish. No.
Polish.
Right. Maybe I'd like it better if it talked like that. But yeah, I did like the way that it got used in the climax, and so that was fun.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, this is one of my pet peeves of the episode, or not pet peeves. There's things I didn't like. I didn't really like the robots. I thought they, if that was the tone that we would have kept for the remainder of the episode, and I guess we did a bit with AI or AL. We kept that bit with the outward appearance of AL, but to me, when we saw Alan in the chamber, it shifted so dynamically into something that was horror, and the production factor went from whatever it was with these robots to 100. I was like, that's what I wanted everything to be. And maybe that would have been too dark. But I just didn't. I could see the vibe they're going for with these robots. But I just, to me, it was the goofiness of it almost took me out of it. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. It just. I don't know.
Yeah, and the big 1950s toy rocket.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that too.
I mean,
good point. But again, it goes to my point to by the time we get to Alan, the look of him is so much more horror to me than some of the playfulness of the very beginning. Like even when the doctor turns and he does cry for Sasha 55, I couldn't really buy into it completely just because of the look of some of the things or the cartooniness of the things around him in some ways.
And you know, that was one of the critiques, I won't say complaints of the episode, but if this would have been a longer episode, it would have been nice to have seen at least a 30-second to a minute montage of his time with Sasha, so that the moment when she does get killed, you know, a wise person once said, "Don't tell me, show me," Lee Shackelford. And that was what I was thinking as watching it. I would have loved to have seen a little bit of time with her so that the audience could have felt that a little bit.
Yeah, it is. That did strike me as clumsy that we don't. I don't think the audience is given enough time to understand why the doctor feels that way. So, yeah, to have him pause and shed a tear just seemed like we're holding up the story here. What's going on?
But
So,
on the
I don't
same
know.
note, you look at Belinda and see Belinda from her point of view. I'm not Sasha 55. I don't want to be another one of your killed adventures.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
promised her she'd be all right too.
Right.
So
And look
yeah,
what happened to her 30
yeah.
seconds later.
Right. Yeah. So now I know how good what good your word is. So
Yeah, and I think maybe they expected us to see the hair of the doctor and be like, "Oh, he's been there a long time. He must have formed some type of deep relationship with these characters," which he does say later, and we get the little flashback when they try to explain the story. But that's the actual time he spent with her. I guess I kind of bought it because of the hair, because I know it's been a long. It felt like it's been a long time.
But see, for me, I went the exact opposite way, and this is the catch-22 of using the different outfits and the different styles that we've seen the Doctor in. You know, look at when they went to the 60s and the
Oh yeah.
60s episode. You know, he had short hair, and
Yeah.
then they changed, and all of a sudden, you know, he had the fro. So somewhat.
he's got wigs.
Yeah. So, you know, that was immediately what I thought was he's in disguise. But while he was, I don't want to skip over this, the ninth word, I thought that was very well done, very well played, very well acted, shot. And I love the fact that they didn't tell us what was going on until you start hearing those words, and it was like, wait, what? Thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just credit that to the acting of Shooty, because I immediately picked up on it. The way he was changing the way he pronounced the words a little bit, the cadence was a little bit. So I immediately picked up on it, but I still thought it was freaking cool, man. Freaking brilliant to write that.
And you know, he's either rehearsed it or he's doing it in his head. He's giving her the speech that he knows the robots want to hear, but he's constructing it in 8-word sentences. That's impressive. And yeah. And it draws the audience in, right? We start counting.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
And then for the story still to make sense.
Yes.
It's
Right.
so good.
You know, Clarence, before we move on, I want to make one comment about, you said how different Alan looked. I saw the robots as already existing, because they said that they lived in harmony. And I thought that Alan's look was more self-generated, meaning the first thing he gets there and says is, "Oh, so this is like a video game." So, of course, he's going to try to make himself look like I'm the emperor, king of the world, or whatnot, whether he wanted to be that in the long run or not. I thought that was more in my head canon as to why he looked different, was because he wanted to be like a big ego and make sure I look better than anybody else.
Yeah, maybe he does get on his high horse once he gets there. So,
All right. So before we get into our ratings, I want to spend just a brief moment comparing Belinda to Ruby, biggest difference between Belinda and Ruby, in your opinion? Lee, I'll start with you.
Oh, wow. I enjoyed Ruby, and I felt like she is somebody to whom things happen. And I can see Belinda as somebody who is going to make things happen.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, indeed. I like how
But
you said
I'm
that.
speculating, yeah.
All right. Clarence, what do you say?
I feel like the existence of Ruby was way more. I feel like it had way more weight to it than with Belinda. We know there is a mystery with Belinda, but we don't have this huge overarching thing that is kind of driving the season. Now we do have the fact that we can't get back home now, that we can't get back to what May the 24th, 2025, because looks like Earth is gone. We have that, but I don't feel like her very existence is the, and maybe it might wind up being the cause of everything, but it just seems like she's a part of the adventure and not the adventure, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense, because what I was going to say was, to me, Ruby's arc was so much about her identity that it detracted from her identity, because we could not know Ruby because Ruby didn't know Ruby. With Belinda, Belinda is a participant in the story, but she is, for all intents and purposes as we know it at the moment, Belinda.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
she is not like Windgrace, who gets caught in some type of time eating and is like thinking that he's getting here on time and has to say, sorry, I'm late, but we get to still say, welcome, Windgrace, we're glad you're here. But with Belinda, she is Belinda, whereas Ruby was still searching for who Ruby was. And I think that just impacted her story if you compare the two of them.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah.
So, all right. Any other yeses or grievances or whatnots about the story before we move forward?
I love X-ray blankets
Oh, those were cool.
Yeah. I like that.
and the reveal showing off that he's got two hearts. And she listens, and we hear that heartbeat that we've heard before.
Yeah.
And she says, "You've got two hearts," and he says, "Padam, padam," which could be a reference to a very old song. I have a recording of Lata Linya singing "Padam, padam," but more recently, that's the heartbeat in a song by Kylie Minogue. So if the Doctor knows that, then it's the show recognizing the existence of Kylie Minogue, which is confusing for the Titanic episode. So,
But then again, we have already recognized her existence as that other person, Kylie Minogue. I don't know who you're talking about. I only know Astrid. But
Right.
this Kylie Minogue evidently is a singer that Rogue had on his playlist.
that's true.
You know.
That's right. So this is the second time that we've recognized Kylie Minogue, who just bears an uncanny resemblance to Astrid
That's
Death.
perfect. Yep. Just
Anyway.
hey, things like that happen. Mundy Flynn.
You know, right. So there you go.
You know. Just saying.
It's not as wild as Gwen Cooper having a ancestor in 19th century Wales either,
That is
so,
true too.
who looks
Or-
exactly like her.
Or even in, hey, what if you really want to go there? Look at Pompeii. Not
Well-
only did Pompeii have a face like a doctor, it also had an ancestor of a pond.
It's true. But
Ju-
but all these other characters are not Time Lords. So
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, favorite? Yes, sir.
Can I throw in my thing real quick that we didn't talk about? Real quick, I loved when it's all said and done, the robot revolution is over. the reparations are brought up, and then the doctor is like, forgive and rebuild, you know, and I'm just, after going through something that's basically destroying your planet, they're ready to forgive, the people that were done wrong. They're ready to forgive the people that did them wrong. And the people that did them wrong are ready to pay reparations, and they're ready to rebuild into a bigger society. So, bigger, better society. So, lessons there. Lessons.
Yeah. Take note.
Take note. Yeah.
And also, was there an underlying message about arranged marriage in this? I don't know if that plays any weight since our characters from Indian descent. But there was I don't know if it means anything. I just thought about it.
Yeah. But mostly just about the kind of guy who does not want to be a woman's partner, but he wants to be her owner. He wants her to
Yes.
have property.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I took it more so I didn't get the cultural from it in any way. I just saw it as I'm the man and I know best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That misogyny kind of look at it. But one thing, talking about culture, which means there's something to do with family, this is one of the first family we don't meet in an introduction in New Who. I can't think of any New Who companion in the first episode that we did not meet or some type of associate or association. Now, you could say Monday Flynn was her family if you want to look at it that way, but that is
Yeah.
Well, we met our roommates.
century straight. We did see roommates, but
It's true.
I don't really guess that we'll probably see them again.
Right.
Yeah. We've seen her
She's-
neighbors. We will see her neighbor again. I know that. But just something interesting I thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Favorite quote. Lee Shackelford. Favorite quote.
Well, tell her cat's gone to live on a farm. Because apparently I'm the queen of outer space, if you could tell the police. And my mom and dad, my poor mom and dad, tell them robots are kidnapping me.
Bye, Belinda.
Bye, Belinda.
All right. Clarence. Favorite
Once-
quote.
Once upon a time, the planet was united. Listen, the robots and people lived together in peace, too. But then 10 years ago, it all changed. Me. Because on that day, the robot revolution arose. Please. The doctor.
All right. Awesome. So profound. Which leads into mine. Favorite quote. Polish, polish. I loved it. I have loved polish, polish. I mean, like literally, even at work, I've been saying polish, polish. So, anyway,
Alrighty then.
all righty then.
Better be
Favorite
careful with
scene,
throwing that around. You know?
huh?
Better be careful throwing that around. Yeah? Somebody might take it the wrong way.
Polish,
Yeah.
polish. Behold, polish, polish. All right. Favorite scene, Clarence Brown.
I love the trippy, two certificate touching, seeing the full life of our companion and Alan from young to old, and I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah.
All right. Lee, favorite scene.
I love the doctor's secret message, that whole sequence, every ninth word. It's just a brilliantly written scene and wonderfully acted by everybody in it. It's just great.
You know, I was going to say my favorite scene was the scene with the doctor and Belinda where she says, take me home. She does the 9 things and she says, take me home. Basically, and the last word is home. The 9th word is home. I thought that was really cool. But I'm going to say that's my honorable mention. And I want to say the cliffhanger with the Eiffel Tower and the cab all floating off into space. I don't know. Something about the visual of that just looked really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be my favorite scene. So final rating. I'll start with final rating. I'm going to give this 5 Behold, polishes out of 5. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was an excellent introduction of a new companion, and it felt like Doctor Who proper that I love, and I just really, really enjoyed it. So 5 out of 5 for me. Clarence, what say you?
You took mine, man. Mine was going to be 4.4 polished bots out of 5.
All right, Lee Shackelford.
I just loved it. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 floating London cabs. So,
All right, awesome. So sounds like we are off to a good start. Sounds like we all enjoyed this. We had fun, and now it's on to episode number 2, and we're going to get a little animated in that episode. For
and a
lack
little
of
more Alan Cummings,
Yes, indeed.
right?
Yes, indeed.
And then the third episode has special guest star Ruby Sunday.
And so does the 4th episode.
Hmm.
And
So,
now I do want to say this real quick. There's been some speculation, and this could be nothing to do with nothing, but that 3rd episode where they're going down into the whale, I think is the name of the story. The whale has, if you look at that little teaser, it goes from 11:59 to 00:00. There's a clock that goes over. So if it goes from 11:59 to 000, what's another word for 000 in time? If it's 11:59 p.m. and the next minute is 000, what is
it's
that?
midnight.
It is midnight.
Yeah.
So there's a rumor out there from that people are speculating that we might have a sequel to Midnight, the Midnight entity.
Interesting.
Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
So,
And let me add that Harold Katz gives this 4.0 IV bags out of 5.
awesome. Awesome. Well, for everyone in the chat, thank you for being here. And for, our friend Kirsty Bissett says, such a great opening episode. Glad you enjoyed it. And for everyone listening, let us know what you thought about this episode. We enjoyed it, obviously. And as always, thank you for joining us. And we will be back